This is the EV Reality Check booth powered by GreenCars.com. If you are hearing our voices, a few things. One, swing by the booth. We're going to be having conversations all day with industry experts, industry leaders, and people from around the discussion of EVs, really having an open conversation about a variety of factors, where the industry is going, how it's evolving, what questions still exist. And also, this is Electrify Expo Los Angeles. This is the 5th time Electrify Expo has been in Southern California, and I got to say, the footprint is huge compared to what we started out with. But what we're doing today is really bringing people together to, again, explore the EV conversation. And with that, my name is Matt Teske. I'm the founder and CEO of ChargeWay. It's an EV charging mobile app you can download if you're shopping for EVs, if you're EV curious, plan road trips, choose any EV and the app will work for you. And it simplifies it. It's kind of like Sesame Street for charging, basically. That's what we do. So today I am joined by and flanked by two individuals that I just got a chance to chat with briefly, but I will introduce you kind of like left to right. So we'll start with Emily. Emily, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm Emily, or EmilySavesAmerica online. No one knows me by just Emily, but I'm from Orange County, California. I live in Los Angeles now. I drive a Tesla electric vehicle, and yeah, thanks for having me here.
Awesome. And then I'm also on my right is Rogan O'Handley. Rogan.
Hi, my name is Rogan. I run the accounts DC Draino, and was born in California, but currently live in Florida.
So you have a Tesla currently, and you're here in Orange County. You live in Florida still, but you had a Tesla, is my understanding, and then basically Mother Nature decided to say you don't get to have a Tesla anymore. Is that kind of how it went?
Yeah. Turns out batteries don't do that well in salt water, and
science.
Florida has a lot of that, and it floods where sea level. So there's been some issues there, but after today, I definitely have a newfound respect for what a lot of electric vehicle cars are, what's coming down the road.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, talking to BJ, the founder of Expo, he said you guys got a chance to do a bunch of test drives this morning, kind of check some new stuff out. But depending on when did you get your Tesla originally? Is it new to you or?
It's new, maybe less than a year.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's a new one.
And when did you get your X originally?
2020.
Oh wow, okay.
I was definitely sold on the speed of it because
Okay.
you cannot find anything like that outside of a Ferrari or a Lambo.
That is true. And dating back 5 years though, there wasn't like options wise like the SUV, like higher end SUV.
That was it. It was really just Tesla.
Yeah, it was like X or nothing basically, right? What did you guys get a chance to drive today?
We drove the Rivian, we drove the Chevy Blazer, the GMC Sierra, the Escalade, the Hummer, the Cybertruck.
Dude, what? Like,
How'd you memorize all these?
but okay, like you went for not just one, not two, not three, but like 6, 7, something like that.
Yeah, we drove a lot.
Everything.
So the goal of that, I think, also too, in talking to BJ is, again, you haven't had your car in a long time, well, at least a couple years now, something like that. So this is kind of an evolution. I mean, Expo has grown a lot since it first started, but it went from you had the option for the X back in 2020, whereas SUV-wise or even truck-wise, there's a lot of options now available. What was your take, like, from what you've seen?
It's a much more competitive market now. It's a much more difficult decision. They got rid of the EV mandates recently in Congress, and now these cars are going to have to compete like every other car.
Yeah.
And I think that's healthy for the industry. It keeps people pushing to make it, consumer friendly, family friendly, easy to use, price, good price points. So I was definitely impressed with the trucks. It felt like just a normal truck, just a lot quieter.
It's still a vehicle. That's the thing. I think a lot of times the EV conversation has turned into one of like, it's different. The EV industry, the early adopters, a lot of the people that started the conversation 20 years ago, they were really going out of their way to say it's different. But in truth, once you get behind the wheel and basically you fill the battery to 100%, you're just driving around because it's a car. And I think that level of, again, the anxiety factor comes into play around, I don't know how to make the car continue to be a car. The fueling part of it is a big part of the conversation of how you know how to trust using electricity that replaces gasoline. What's your experience been in less than a year of having a Tesla? I mean, here in Southern California, you're kind of blessed. You've got like a bunch of superchargers everywhere. If you have a house where you can charge, it's special. But I guess what's your experience been?
I was going to say, I've had a very positive experience. I went from a Mini Cooper, which I love, super, super fun, good for town. But now I'm like, first of all, we have chargers at home. We have superchargers. I have the long range. I've literally never had an issue. But now my problem is like, ooh, once you have that technology, it's really only in electric vehicles. You really just can't go back to a normal car. Like, I'm one of the people who actually uses dog mode. I bring my dog everywhere, and she's back there in dog mode, and we joke about it, but we're like, oh my God, how are we going to go back from that? Like, I have a Model 3. First of all, going from a Mini Cooper Sport to that, Oh my God. The first time I drove home, I was like, I think I was just casually going 90 on the freeway. And I was like, I'm only going like 65.
That
right?
will happen
like,
in an EV.
easy. And, it's just even like, dude, the heated seats, the cooling seats, the technology, the upgrades, the fact that it can self-drive, it can self-park, it has the summon feature. I don't know if a lot of people use that feature.
I think I've used it once in my car.
It's a little crazy.
It's nuts. I got it like ages ago, and I was watching the whole time. I'm kind of like, I'm trusting this. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I'm not right now. But it's gotten a lot better.
I get in trouble because my valet will go get the car, and I'm like, oh no, I got it, and they're like, please, like, don't do that. It's like literally a legal issue for us. I'm like, okay, but I was gonna say, I feel like it was one of those things, if the government's telling me to do something, naturally I don't want to comply with them. So I was like, oh no, I would never have an electric vehicle. Now as a woman, I'm like, gas in California could potentially hit $9 a gallon. I'm not doing that. I charge my car, it's like 12 to 18 bucks overnight. And as a woman, like, I don't want to go to a gas station. I do not feel safe. And I also got a Tesla because it was one of the safest cars after I got into a bad car accident with Lyft driver and broke a bunch of bones, and so I love being safe in it. Yeah, huge thing.
So you mentioned too, again, with respect to just what's happened, I think in the landscape of discussing electric cars in the last 5 years, 10 years, is there's been obviously the natural push has happened. Brands like Tesla basically kind of pushed the industry to make a move, which I think was, again, that was Elon's mission originally. He's like, that's what I want to do. He did get that attention to happen. He got the industry to take notice. I think the challenge that's happened with a lot of the long-standing brands that are like the vehicles you drove this morning, they've had to kind of retrain their brains on how to make cars, because it isn't the traditional way of just saying, hey, we got some sheet metal, we stamp it. The legacy auto brands, their prowess and their again, the brain trust they have is around combustion. It's around mechanical engineering. And EV is about electrical engineering and battery chemistry and things of that nature. I think that's one thing that is still going to be, I mean, they've made the move. But I guess with the vehicles you drove today and the X that you had before, do you feel that they are on par with what you experienced before? Or are there areas where you're like, this could still improve? Or you're like, no, they got it?
I personally think they got it. It's interesting because Tesla is kind of its own line of cars. Like, they're truly different. You are in like a video game or a spaceship, whereas driving the Escalade, driving the GMCs, driving the Hummer, you feel like you're in a more normal car. And I almost kind of like that personally, because a lot of us we've been riding these vehicles for decades. Just hearing. Yeah. Seeing these dirt bikes and not hearing the brap of them,
Exactly, yeah.
It's kind of interesting. I was telling them, I was like, I bet there's a market for adding sound to the vehicles. Like,
no, Borla, a performance company in the auto industry, they started making EV exhausts just for that purpose.
Yeah,
because they're like, well, people like the rumble, man. But
it's
that's
so quiet. It almost is like it makes you nervous. And I think there's something positive to having some noise to it because you're riding around people and all that. But I mean, I think the battery length has gotten a lot better. I remember with my X, they said it would say 300 miles, but you get like 180. And I had the low pro tires, so that was I drive fast, but it seems like the battery length has gotten a lot better, over 400, about on average, and the price point. The Model X was really expensive in 2020.
Yeah,
and now Elon has got the price on that, but across the spectrum, these cars are comparable to the gas.
More approachable. I mean, I think that's the thing is on the pocketbook side of it. We've had new EVs and new EVs and new EVs, but we're finally getting to a place where we've got 5-10 years under our belt of now we have a lot of used ones, many of which are Tesla. And so a lot of people that might be saying, I can't afford a $50,000 brand new EV. Well, you can get a used Tesla right now for 20 grand. And again, the example of we're going to get more people that couldn't have been on that early adopter phase to get a chance to drive the vehicle. These vehicles that are coming out from the legacy brands, they'll get into market a couple, 3 years, 4 or 5 years. Same thing. It won't be a $120,000 Hummer. It might. Well, I'm not going to speculate what that's going to go down to in price, but it's still a Hummer. But I think the detail, and you mentioned too, basically just the idea of okay, what is politically what's happened? The government saying okay, we're going to do this. What's the balancing act? I think where they got it wrong, they being just elected officials, is they didn't know how to frame the conversation and saying we want to incentivize this and we want to push industry forward for job creation or just staying relevant with the global markets. They just didn't know how to frame that, and it came across as you shall all do this now. And I think that what gave a lot of people pause was, but wait a minute, where is the opportunity for, again, consumers to say, I want to choose what's best for me? So, I mean, you mentioned that as being a kind of a key factor. Are you saying, yeah, I didn't like how that was framed?
Yeah, well, they get everything wrong. So this is just one more thing on the list. You don't shift people by forcing them. You don't shift people by threatening them. And it's one of those things where, of course, like we live in America, we should always have the option. And electric vehicles also like maybe aren't for everyone. I mean, my dad's like 83. If I put him in a Tesla, he would like literally lose his mind. Like he's terrified to be in my car.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now I think we have the option, which is gonna expand people's minds a little bit more, really like ease them into it. Also, you know, like when it comes to taxes and rebates and all that, there's incentives. But then people also forget about the middle ground of like, I think when it's partially electric, that's a great option for most people that don't want to go full electric.
No, I call it a lily pad car. It's kind of like, okay, I had my gas car, but I'm hop to that next lily pad, which is I can drive electric on 30 miles and kind of get a taste, but that confidence in the background of your mind of like, if I got to fill up with gas, I have an option at least to do that.
I think the industry itself is evolving too, just to be more normal. You know, 4 or 5 years ago, when you were talking about EVs, everyone said the environment, the environment, the environment, and it was pretty much the selling point. Anything you didn't have in the EV, in the gas, you said, well, I'm doing it in the environment. I didn't hear once today, and I think that's a positive. Obviously, it helps the environment in some ways, but it's like, but I still want to have a good experience. I'm paying money. You know, I got a family. I got groceries. I got a climate I'm living in. And I think that's the real evolution of this industry, is that they're focused on the consumer and what's going to make them buy it, not just this kind of, you know, political advocacy aspect.
The politicization, am I going to say it right word? Politicization? How the hell do you say that? Anyway.
That's the right word.
Is that right? Yeah, I always get it wrong when I say it out loud. My brain says it right. No, but that's a good point in the sense that how did we politicize the idea of like, hey, clean air's a thing that's we don't agree on for some reason? Yeah. And I agree with you in the sense that the original advertising from a lot of these automakers, like the polar bear hugging the dude, it's like, well, there's a ceiling to the customers that are like, that's my jam. Yeah. You know, whereas now, and again, the Expo team, what BJ and his team have built out with this is what you described, which is this is about inviting people into a discussion and not saying, we're going to force upon you a way of thinking, a thought process. I think the challenge that the policymakers, as you said, it's like, well, they get it wrong all the time. They again, I think their mind was and their hearts are probably in the right place of saying we do need to build out industry, but the challenge of that then is we have to figure out what's the balancing. If we subsidize fossil fuels a ton, like we got cheap gas in America because we do that. But that's the balancing act of saying, well, cool, if we're going to give money to one, let's help subsidize another. But they got that narrative wrong. I mean, that's my opinion. I think that's what you guys are voicing.
I think it has matured. And, you know, we both work in more kind of conservative worlds, and we've just seen a normalization of this technology. And it's for everybody, right? And it's not about your politics. It's about your day-to-day life and your pocketbook. And I think that is a really positive shift for the industry.
Well, I think lifestyle, and you said you charge at home, yeah? Yeah. When you had your car, were you charging at home a lot?
I was, yeah.
I think the lifestyle piece is one thing that's so odd. When we had, I had a gas car growing up. I had plenty of them. We all had to go find our fill up. We had to go get the gas. And it didn't matter if you were rich in the hills and driving a Bentley, or if you were some college kid that's like, I have an old used Honda or something. You could be at the same gas pump and have that eye to eye with somebody and be like, we both got to do this. This is weird. But it was accepted as like, that's normal. But the lifestyle dynamic you mentioned, I think, is so important because that's the dealers don't know how to have that conversation. Like, hey, where do you live? Where do you park your car at night? Like, they've never had to bother with that. But now it could totally transform that lily pad conversation of like, you know, maybe a pure EV isn't for you yet, but you got a garage. I bet anything, if you plug this thing in at night, the next year you'll buy gas like 3 times.
Yeah, and like also, I mean, most apartment buildings that you go to now have chargers. I mean, there's superchargers everywhere, especially if you're in LA. It's just not an issue the way it used to be. I mean, even most houses you go to have chargers as well.
Electricity is everywhere. That's the fun part.
I'm like, that's just not the issue anymore.
Well, I think visibility, too, is part of the thing that, again, we see. Again, I love watching Sunday Night Football. And every time you see a game, it's like there's an advertisement for, like, Exxon being green or something. And that's advertised constantly. We see it on street signs. We're doing the highway. Fuel here. It's got all the signs and brands. That doesn't exist, though, for charging. There's no visibility into that. Do you think that's something that, I mean, from a discussion we could improve upon?
I don't know. This is really...
It's a big question.
I'm like, I don't know. I would say the most negative feedback I will say, though, about the Teslas, because you probably see it's all over Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. It's just... People are like, please stop using them for Ubers because you feel sick in the back. But then it's like you literally have to explain to people, you're like, dude, it's the regenerative braking, which is like not only an issue, like you can turn that off. Yep. So you can drive a Tesla like a normal car and not be sick. But also that just means the person needs to learn how to drive with that feature or drive without it. And I'm like, I swear they would have so much better PR if they just changed that one little thing.
That one thing of like, please don't make me sick in the ride to the airport.
Because my friends don't feel sick when I drive, and he experienced it earlier. I'm not on the brake like this.
I thought you were about to say he got sick when you were driving.
No, I'm a great driver. I know how to deal with
I grabbed the bar a couple
braking.
times, the handles, you know.
She's like, do you know the phrase G-force?
They're like 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and she's like, oh, really?
Well, no, as you're explaining, I mean, the conversations that, again, the type of listeners and followers that you guys have, this is something that has gone from something where there was like a hell no type response to you're living it, you've lived it. Aside from the disaster that happened and it cost you your car, you can say like, well, look, for example, there's a guy with a Rivian that had that got flooded, but it wasn't salt water, it was fresh water. He pulled it out of the mud, drove it home. Because again, that's the science of it was it didn't corrode the battery.
I mean, on the positive, the water did not leak into the vehicle, so I can say that they're very Loctite. And it wasn't like instant. It was a couple months later, and it could have been something else.
Yeah,
I just think it was that. But you know, so it's just something to consider down south, and maybe having a higher kind of wheelbase, a higher lift, because that's why a lot of people in the south have lifted trucks. Is it floods, and those are the only vehicles that are able to get from point A to point B when hurricanes come through. So,
and back in the day, it was like you got to have the snorkel that comes up to the top of the windshield, so your engine's breathing.
Exactly. So
whereas you see an EV plow through water, it's like, there is no intake. It's just doing its thing.
So yeah, no, if they have EVs that are a bit more waterproof, I mean, that's probably not a big change to make, and they can do it.
I think what you're keying on too is just that we've kind of evolved into this stage of having these types of conversations where it isn't about what is the ideological position that a lot of the early adopters had, which was, again, nothing wrong with the environmental position on it. As you said, you're like, well, that's going to happen anyway. Like, that's a benefit. But it doesn't need to be front and center. It can be more about what's the vehicle that you fell in love with. Like, what, and that's how people shop for cars, especially, I mean, we're a car culture here in the U.S. I mean, actually, out of curiosity, you went from a Mini. That's an enthusiast-based kind of a performance-driving car. What was it that then sold you to then go into getting a Model 3?
I mean, like, the technology jump is just insane. Literally, the dog mode sold me. The mini air conditioning is the worst air conditioning I've ever experienced in my life. That car was so hot all the time, even on full blast.
I think it was meant to just roll the windows down.
I was like, oh my gosh. But then it's funny because you have a Sport and you're like, oh, this car is fast. And then, like I said, my first time driving a Tesla, I'm literally on the road next to Porsches, and I'm like, let's go. Like, I got this.
It's an unassuming level of performance that I think that's what surprises most people. So you test drove 7, 8 cars today, whatever it was. If you had to choose today based on the experience you had, what one stood out to you the most?
The Escalade.
All right.
I mean, that's an obvious choice. It's the most expensive one we drove. But that panoramic screen where the passenger can watch YouTube, I mean, that is game changer. I've never even seen that. But, I mean, it had all the bells and whistles. It was gorgeous. 40-speaker stereo system.
Seriously, 40?
I thought he said like even 50 potentially, but I
Maybe.
don't know.
There were
Something
speakers
crazy
in
like
the
that.
seats,
Yeah.
had captain seat. I mean, it was just gorgeous.
But I think that's what we're talking about is that fun factor that wasn't a big part of the conversation like Tesla was the fun factor for a long time, and everyone else was just kind of like, here's a compliance car. Yeah, it's got a battery in it. It's fine. But the fun factor of the auto brands and the brand legacy and the value of what they've done to create those brands over the last century, basically, they're now being able to infuse that in. But they had to solve the what's under the skin first, which is batteries, software, all that stuff. But based on your experience, you're saying, look, I got to be honest, if I had to go drive the Lyric from here to Miami, number one, you could totally do it. Infrastructure's there. That vehicle can charge up at like a level 7 charger in like 20, 30 minutes probably. If you're stopping for lunch, that's nothing. Plus, it's got like 400 miles of range anyway.
Yeah, the Escalade could probably make it to Miami without even charging. I mean, I think it was over 450 miles.
I'm like, from here?
Yeah, no, sorry. I live in Tampa.
Florida.
I just forgot where
Florida.
I was for a second.
No, but that's totally true in Tampa for sure.
Yeah.
But that part of it is, I think that we're keying on something big. Is the audiences that, again, there's always seems like that virtual line in the sand of who's listening to who and who's having the conversation about what. And what you're describing to me is what we needed to get to naturally. And again, I think Expo is a good example of what that was designed to create, is a sit down with everybody that says, look, we all have cars, and we all have wallets, and we all have bank accounts, and we all have needs. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about a perceived ideology, but more so this, you were describing, you're like, this is, not only does it work, it's super fun, and the things that accommodated something for you that's important, like dog mode. I got a corgi at home, man. Like dog mode matters.
No, it's crazy. We were even like talking about like one of us is always gonna have a Tesla, like between my boyfriend and I, because I'm like we always have to have one of our dogs. We have a Pomeranian and German Shepherd, and either way, one is with us, and they love being in the car. They will sleep in dog mode for like 6 hours, and it allows us to go like live our life and go have lunch and do something. And I'm like, well, one of us is gonna have to keep it. But I think the main thing is this is showing we went from when you were like, okay, I'm gonna get an electric car, you're gonna go get a Tesla, to now you literally have a million options.
Yeah, yeah. And well, in the catch-up game that had to happen, the thing that I think is going to be most interesting moving forward is we have domestic manufacturing is catching up in a lot of ways. Where the industry, we had a conversation with the CEO of Lightship. They make this electric RV here, and it's manufactured in Colorado. And we're talking about just domestic manufacturing and what's going to happen with that. And there's a lot we still have to unpack with that as an industry. And this gets into where do we source the minerals? How do we keep it all here locally? This is an area where globally, like countries like China, they've kind of sprinted ahead. And their tech is very impressive. And that's going to be something that I want to make sure that we, again, domestically, we got to stick with it. Because if we don't, we're going to miss out not only on having better products for ourselves, but then exporting those to the world.
Yeah, it's not going away. It's only going to be a greater need as AI comes here, and we got robots and the quantum, what is it called? The Elon's robot guy?
Robot guy?
Oh, yeah, we want to pre-order one of those.
Oh, Optimus?
Optimus,
Yeah.
not quantum. Yeah. So, let's get the manufacturing back here. Good jobs. I mean, AI is going to be replacing a lot of jobs anyways, but not the stuff you can do with your hands. So
it's going to actually, we talked about that with the gentleman from Lightship earlier. Is just he said that's the part of it is we're building these things by hand, but we're building them here. And the AI aspect too is something that, I mean, even the expo team is figuring out how do we leverage this in a way that's beneficial to our attendees, but makes what is being presented more effective. AI is a different ball of wax. That's a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
I was thinking of that.
I'm like, I can't predict any of that.
So I guess big takeaways. I mean, so this is your first expo that you both have attended, right? That was actually, what was that?
that was very Electrify Expo.
That was very great.
I'm like, that looks fun. I'm like, I want that.
but first expo for both of you, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so I guess again, for those that are going to hear about this from you, again, your guys' fan base and followers, what are they going to hear from you?
They're going to hear that it's not just Teslas out there, that pretty much every major brand has an EV equivalent, and it's comparably priced, and it's not so much focused on environmental issues. It's focused on your day-to-day life, and what's best for you. It's your choice. Freedom of choice.
There you go.
It's funny. I feel like we're all such car people in Los Angeles because I feel like
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
constantly seeing all the new cars, and we're all so obsessed with constantly getting new cars. And it was funny because I know everyone's going to want to come next year, but I just think it's cool. I think we're so used to you want either a Tesla or you're going to get a BMW and Mercedes. I mean, that's like literally all we've heard our entire lives. And I like that there's now all these options. It's not just, you have to choose this brand, even if you don't like this brand because it's your only option. So it's cool. I'm excited to see all the new technology.
It's moving fast. That's the thing, is it doesn't stop. I think one thing that's going to be, you mentioned again the AI thing, just the amount of energy that's needed to produce AI content is married to the fact that we have to produce more energy to fill up these cars. And the cool thing is we can do that all here. Like we do it all domestically, but that is something that then it's a big conversation of the utility companies getting together on a state level, federal level, making sure that it all functions really, really well. But at the end of the day, that's for industry experts to align to make it happen. The end result is the conversation that we're having right now and the feedback that you're giving us about your experience here today, which is, yeah, but if it's done right, it works. And if it's done with drivers in mind in a way to say, we're not trying to force you in a direction that makes you feel uncomfortable, we're trying to bring you into a new conversation that makes you feel like, wow, that's for me. So I think that's great feedback, and that's, again, appreciate you coming to the show. Anything else you'd like to add? Last things, last comments?
Great time. Bring the family.
Awesome.
I know,
Logan?
so I'll be here next year.
Emily, okay, that's good. Be here next year.
Driving all the biggest trucks.
There you go. Well, Emily, Rogan, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you.
This has been great. This is the Electrify Expo Los Angeles. We are at the EV Reality Check booth powered by GreenCars.com.